I recently came back from a 1-week solo trip to Italy, and I got a lot of questions on how to plan a trip like this, how to solo travel, how to be comfortable and safe, but also have fun. So I'm dedicating this video to exactly that, how to plan a solo trip and my best tips for solo travelers. Let's begin. Hi you guys, how are you? I'm gonna be splitting this video up into a lot of sections to hopefully be able to cover absolutely everything you've been wondering about planning a trip and solo traveling. I've done 3 solo trips in the past 1.5 years. I've gone to Southeast Asia alone, I've done Central America alone, and I've also done a trip to Europe alone. I've done a lot of research in regards to those trips, you know, how to stay safe, how to actually go there, how to plan the trip, but I also learned a lot of things while solo traveling in each respective country. Like, I've become a lot more comfortable being alone, I've become a lot more comfortable traveling alone, figuring things out, getting around, like all of that, and I want to share all those learnings with you guys today. So yeah, let's get into it. First things first, let's talk about choosing a location for your trip. The first thing you gotta think about before you plan your trip is choosing the country you're going to and the town you're going to. And I got a lot of questions when I was in Italy of like, is Italy safe for solo travelers? Was the town you stayed in safe for solo female travelers? And there are lists online that you can look at that are like top countries in the world where women feel the most safe. That's the safest for solo female travelers. That's the safest for just females in general. But I would also really recommend looking up the town you're going to, because in each country there are places that are, you know, less safe and there's places that are more safe, and that really applies to solo female travelers as well. I would recommend looking at some touristy places if you're traveling in like tourist season, because at least personally I feel more safe when there's like a lot of tourists around, like there's tons of people, you know, just like bopping around just like me. I don't feel like I'm sticking out. Not all touristy places will be a good fit though. You want to stay away from like big party places, big like group places, and rather go to places where like families with older children go, places where couples go, and places where solo travelers go. And there's a lot of ways you can do your research on this. I would recommend travel blogs from other solo travelers. I recommend just Googling, and I also recommend TikTok, because there's quite a few solo travelers on TikTok who talk about their experience in different cities all around the world. So yeah. If this is your first solo trip though, I do want to say the closer to home, probably the better. Like a country not super far away, a neighboring country, or yeah, you don't even have to leave the country. You can go to a nearby town or a nearby city you've always wanted to visit. Build your confidence doing things alone. Get used to flying alone. Get used to taking public transport alone. Get used to finding your way alone. Get used to all those things, and then you can kind of build your way up and go on further trips when you feel more comfortable. Once you got your country and your town figured out, what I personally like to do is I like to create a Notion page. So I have all my travel information, all my travel details in that page. And when I go through and I decide what I want to do in all the other categories later, like accommodation, transportation to get there, activities I want to do, I like to fill all that out in the same Notion page as well. It's just really nice to have everything in like one document for a trip, especially when you're going alone, because you're in control of your whole trip, right? So you want to make sure you have absolutely everything you need sorted out before you go, and I like to keep all those things in a document on my Notion. Now, anytime I talk about Notion in any of my videos, I always get a lot of comments asking like, how do you use Notion? How do you learn to use Notion? I don't get it. Like, can you explain this, please? And like, I get it. I've been there myself. It's not the easiest platform to learn. So I want to introduce you guys to Skillshare, who is very kindly sponsoring today's video. Skillshare has thousands of classes led by industry experts across everything from productivity to illustration to marketing, and of course also Notion. And I really like this class by Ali Abdal called Notion Masterclass, Maximize Your Productivity and Organization, because it's super thorough and takes you through everything from building a page on Notion to using databases, and then delving into even more advanced topics like widgets and calendars. Like, if you're completely new to Notion, watch this and you'll know absolutely everything you need to know after. You can also find classes on Skillshare to learn Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, video editing with Final Cut Pro. Whatever you want to learn this summer, Skillshare can make it happen. The first 500 people to click the link in my description box below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So give it a go, try it out, and let me know how you get on. Next is transportation, how to actually get to your destination and how to get around when you're there. So you really have 5 options here: plane, train, ferry, bus, and bringing your own personal vehicle / renting your own personal vehicle. Some apps I would recommend to do your research would probably be Skyscanner for flights, Rome to Rio for like how to get to your destination. Google Maps is also really good for that, and Trainline for finding trains. And as a solo traveler, or as a solo female traveler, there's a few things that I would kind of make sure to do and not do, or just be wary of in general when it comes to transportation. And the first thing is I probably wouldn't rent my own vehicle. You know, most likely you're in a foreign country, things can happen. I just don't like the idea of being completely on my own and driving a vehicle, you know, on my own. The same kind of applies to taxis. Like I always prefer public transport if I can. It's also cheaper. But I have taken taxis in Costa Rica, Mexico, and all around Europe alone. And I never felt unsafe in any of those scenarios. However, I always made sure to do my research in, you know, is taxi safe in this country? What taxi companies should you use? What apps should you use? The next consideration is just make sure you do your travel during the day. So if that means booking an early morning flight so you can do your travel to your destination or to your hotel during the daytime and not the nighttime. Houses and transportation just feel a little bit safer when it's daytime versus nighttime, you know? And this final consideration is, I would say, probably a little bit dependent on where you go. I wouldn't do this in Europe personally. However, if you travel to a really remote place, I do think sometimes it is worth to pay extra for transportation. Like sometimes for safety, it is just not worth it to get the cheapest option. For example, when I went to Mexico, I read online that most tourists take second class and first class buses. They don't take third class buses because they're deemed less safe. So when I booked my bus, yes, obviously it's more expensive to go on, you know, second or first class buses, but I did it anyway because I wanted to make sure that I was safe. Right, once I got all that sorted out, I take a screenshot of my flight, I take a screenshot of how I'm getting from the airport to my hotel, what trains I'm supposed to take, what connections I'm doing, and I put all that into my Notion so it's all there and easily accessible. Next, let's talk about choosing accommodation. In regards to choosing accommodation, you really have 4 options. You have hotels, hostels, bed and breakfast, and Airbnbs. And before you choose any of these 4 options of accommodations, I do want to again reiterate, research the area you're going to. In like every city around the world, especially big cities, there are like places that are more sketch, like around the train station, a certain like downtown area, like places like that are more sketch. I personally know solo female travelers who've stayed in all 4 types of the accommodation that I talked about earlier. However, personally, I don't think I would stay in an Airbnb when traveling alone. There's just something about hotels, hostels, and some bed and breakfast as well, where they just have someone at the front desk at all times, like 24 hours a day, whatever. And that kind of just like adds a level of security that is a really nice to have. Just the fact that they're there and like watching over me makes me feel more safe at night. I have the same thing here in my flat in London. I live with my boyfriend, but when he's away, I always feel a little bit like less safe because he's not here. So yeah, I like to stay in hotels, hostels, and bed and breakfast just because of that added level of security in a way. Next, let's talk about activities. One of my most asked questions for my trip to Italy was, did you pre-plan all your activities or were you just more like spontaneous when you were there? And from my experience, I think the best thing to do and the most successful trips I've had is where I have kind of like a mix of those 2 things. I always write down a list in my Notion of a couple things that I really, really want to do when I'm in my destination, and also a couple of day trips that I really want to do. And I might even put in a booking for a restaurant or an activity because that's required, like that's okay. However, I do also think it's really important to leave some room to be spontaneous. There's a beauty in the fact that you can go on a solo trip and literally do exactly what you want to do and be spontaneous and do things on the day. Like you don't have to follow a schedule, and that's great. And it also leaves some room for if you want to meet people, when you do meet people, you can be spontaneous and go do something with them. Like in Italy, I met this other female solo traveler randomly while walking home from like a morning trip that I did. She asked me if I could take her photo. I said yes. We ended up chatting and she was like, oh my god, like I'm going to this pesto making class later today, and actually I think we need to be 2 people. I don't know, have anyone to go with. And I knew exactly what class she was talking about, and I really wanted to do it myself, and I was like, girl, let's go together, it should be fun. And so we did, and it was so fun. And that day I had technically planned in my head to do a day trip to another town, but I ended up staying and doing the class with her instead, and it was one of the best days of my entire trip. So yeah, definitely leave room to be a little bit spontaneous. In terms of finding activities and doing your research, I would recommend travel blogs, YouTube, TikTok. Yes, I do a lot of my research on TikTok, and also TripAdvisor. They have a lot of good like activities and day trips that you can sign up to and do. Now, when you're actually on your trip, how do you manage alone? There's like a couple of things that get a little bit harder to do when you're on your own. So this is how I managed with those things. And first, in regards to like keeping your valuables and your most important documents safe, lock them in a safe immediately and don't touch them for the duration of your stay. Then when you go on your day trips or when you want to go swimming or out and about, only bring the things you think are absolutely essential. I would never go out of my hotel with more money than I thought I could like use in a day for transportation back and forth and a meal and a drink during that day. In regards to going swimming and keeping your valuables safe, I got a lot of questions about this. Some beaches and some cities just have more crime and more petty theft. The place I was at in Italy, and from what I've heard, the Amalfi Coast in general doesn't have a lot of theft, so people just regularly leave their bags and nothing gets stolen. And that is exactly what I did as well. I had my beach bag, it doesn't look super expensive. I have my stuff in my bag, again, nothing expensive except my phone. Put my phone in my bag, cover it with like either my beach towel or like my shirt from the day, hide it under my sun chair or hide it next to some rocks, go out, swim, come back, nothing happened. But I did see and I did hear of some other ways to do it as well. And the first thing, which I thought was actually really clever, is to get like a swimming belt. You get a waterproof swimming belt, you put it around your tummy like this, and you can put your phone in and some cash and you can swim with it. So you leave the rest of your stuff at your chair because you're not scared of that getting stolen, right? But you are scared of your phone getting stolen and your cash. You just swim with your valuables and it doesn't get wet. I saw some girls with that in Italy. I thought it was really smart, so that's something I'm definitely considering for next time. And what I've also done a couple of times is just find a group of really nice looking girls and just go up and ask them if they could look out for your bag. Most of the time they say yes, so yeah. Next, let's talk about how to not feel alone when you're solo traveling. And I think the best answer to this is just experience and time. Start by doing small things alone, like going to the park alone, going on a solo date alone, going for a lunch alone. Then kind of build your way up to a solo day trip. And then once you become comfortable with that, you can do a solo trip. I used to be someone who was not very comfortable doing things alone. And now I've become so comfortable being alone, but I do still get some intrusive thoughts like, oh, like, do people think I look lonely? Like, do I feel lonely? Like, you know, all those kinds of things. And I think when that happens, it's just important to remember that you are here alone by choice. You decided to do this for yourself and you are very happy to do so. Because that's easy to forget sometimes, you know, just remind yourself of that. And this all again applies to what a lot of people see as the most daunting thing about solo travel, which is eating alone. Again, the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it. Next, let's cover how to feel safe when you're traveling alone. I would say the more solo trips you go on, the more comfortable and safe you feel solo traveling. So the first time you go on a solo trip, do the absolute most you can to make yourself feel as safe as possible. And that may mean saving up a little bit more money to pay for things that make you feel safer. Like what I talked about earlier, choosing a hotel with 24-hour front desk service versus an Airbnb. It could be paying a little bit more for a hotel because it's in the super touristic, super safe area. It could be booking an earlier flight or a later flight because then you can do your travel during the day, those kinds of things, you know? And then in terms of like feeling safe when you are solo traveling, I do want to say like 95% of that, in my personal opinion at least, comes from just where you're staying. So if you choose your accommodation and the part of town your accommodation is in, and also the city/town you're in wisely, that will get you a really long way towards feeling safe as a solo traveler throughout your whole trip. I got a lot of questions about being out at night and like walking around at night alone, especially like after 9 p.m. when it's dark out and whatever. Personally, I don't like to be out during that time. That's not why I'm in this country. I'm there to explore the country during the day. I'm not there to like explore the nightlife, you know? Often I will be walking home from dinner around like 8, maybe I'll pop by to get some ice cream, but it's still light out, there's still tons of tourists. So yeah, I don't prefer to be out during the late hours of the day. That's not why I'm in this country. You know, that's like a different kind of trip. Like with my boyfriend or with my friends, I would do that, but I wouldn't do that alone. I would be really happy to hear other solo travelers' opinions about this, but like, I would much rather go to sleep, wake up really early and like have the entire day to just see the town, explore, do whatever I want. Like I would rather do that than go out and be out late and like feel a bit sketch. I don't know. There's also like general precautions that you can take and should take as a solo female traveler. Let people know where you are and let them know your plans. I have all my friends, my family and my boyfriend on Find My Phone, so they always know where I am. I also FaceTime my mom and my boyfriend like every day or every other day just to let them know my plans and like how I'm getting on and what I'm doing and all that. And whenever you meet someone who's like not like the receptionist at your hotel, don't tell them you're traveling alone. Like tell them like, oh, my boyfriend's just waiting for me in the hotel room. Oh no, I'm traveling with friends, they're just like busy right now working, whatever. Be wary, pay attention, and if you're drinking, make sure you know no one's touching your drink and you're not drinking too much to safely get yourself home, because you're the only one looking out for yourself. Like you have to be almost like yourself and the friend taking care of you if something happens. Like you're 2-in-1. You're taking care of yourself. You only have yourself on this trip. I also always have like emergency phone numbers noted down and like the number to my hotel noted down and the address and stuff like that in case I get lost. And just like be a little bit street smart. Like you can really set yourself up to avoid unsafe scenarios or situations because you're planning this trip, like you're in charge of what you're doing. You can still do tons of different things. Like I'm an example of that. I do so many different things when I'm on solo trips, but just like be safe, like stay in touristy groups, stay in places where it's kind of busy, you know. Finally, here are some products that I would definitely recommend you getting if you're solo traveling. I have a few here, and there's also like one that I would definitely get for my next solo trip, and that is the swimming belt from Amazon. I think it's like genius and I want to try it and see how it works. But other than that, the first thing I would recommend is just keep a spare battery with you at all times. Your phone is your best friend when you're solo traveling. You're using it for maps, you're using it for money, you're using it to take pictures, you're using it for entertainment, like it's everything, right? So it's so important that you have enough battery at all times on your phone. I've definitely been in the situation where I'm almost running out of battery and I'm like, oh my god, how do I get home? Like this is awful. I'm the only person who can help myself here. So I carry 2 battery packs. This one has a full load of like 1 iPhone battery and this one has like half a load of iPhone battery, but it's quite nice because it like sticks onto my phone like that. I would also really recommend you getting either an eSIM or if you have a plan that has roaming in the country you're going to, make sure that's sorted and make sure you have enough. And finally, as a content creator, I do also recommend a mini tripod. This one is tiny, it fits in my beach bag, and to be honest, most of my bags, unless they're like little mini bags, you basically just like untie it like that, put the legs up, and you can extend it to like super tall. Look at that. This is how I get most of my photos and videos of myself on my solo trips. I just put this out. It's super easy. It takes no time. Yeah. So that is everything I had for you guys today. If you've been on a solo trip before, please leave your tips and recommendations in the comments. I want to have a conversation going with tips for all the girls out there who are looking to this themselves. And yeah, best of luck on your trip and I will see you guys next time. Bye!